Screen time. What is actually happening to your child, and how can you protect your child's health and happiness? In today's digital age, it's easy for kids to spend way too much time on screens. But what actually does too much time mean? And what can you do as a parent? The screens are everywhere. Welcome to Epic Mom Life. I am your host, Kara Peterson. This show is sponsored by The Possum's Tale, a unique book adventure for your 6 to 12-year-old child. Let's jump into today's show. Technology has its benefits. This is the world we live in. Your child needs to be digitally literate without becoming a slave to their screens. What are healthy screen limits by age? The American Academy of Pediatrics has changed their recommendations over the years. Okay, so this is where I get totally snarky. We had definite recommendations for how much we should or should not be on our screens by age, and they were all over the internet. We had warnings, we had movies showing us what the effects were. We had all kinds of things that showed us how damaging the screens were to our brain function and our brain development and our brain growth. Well, life has changed, and those things are much harder to find now. Here's what I think has happened. Role modeling. The most important factor, the best way to teach your child healthy screen time and lifetime balance skills is to model them. This statistic is way back in 2016, was adults were spending an average of 9.5 hours with screen-based media per day. That just boggles my mind. But here's the big part. Only 8 hours, well, not only, 8 hours of that was not related to work activities. So 8 hours of that 9.5 hours were not related to work activities. Looking at the current social lifestyle, how could they recommend 2 to 4 hours a day on screens if the average adult was modeling 8 hours a day? 2, commercialism. Let's face it, our social behaviors and oftentimes our health choices are driven by advertising budgets. Corporations are now advertising on those screens. They want you on them as often as possible. There is not a lot of incentive, especially to them, to keep you off of those screens. COVID. Oh, I know. We are all sick to death of hearing about COVID. The reality, however, is that a lot changed in our lives because of it. Previous to COVID, schools were sending home warnings. Teachers were sending home regular notices to parents to keep their kids off their screens. Teachers were telling parents of the consequences of too much screen time. Well, all of a sudden, COVID happened, and we put kindergartners in front of screens for up to 4 hours of schoolwork per day. Nary a peep was heard of the devastating effects on our children that the schools were causing. These schools did not know what to do. I totally get it. But they did know of the long-term effects that were damaging. But they did know that long-term usage of screens was damaging to our children. So where does that leave us? The screen time guidelines across the internet are mostly gone. They're really, really difficult to find. The ones I actually found for anybody above age 6 were found from a Vision website. All the other ones, American Pediatrics, Psychology, Health, Mayo Clinic, all of them, they will not give you a clear cut. You should only spend 2 hours or 4 hours or whatever a day. All of those are gone. Now parents are left with a haphazard, whatever you can manage type of thing. And most parents really want black and white. They want to know, I'm still a good parent if I only allow my child to have this many hours of screen time. That's what most parents want to hear. So that's what I'm going to give you. So here's what I've been able to discern. Children under the age of 2 should basically have no screens. And this was according to the Academy of Pediatrics. They need direct eye contact and crave human interaction. The only exception to this is FaceTime, due to the fact that they don't consider this screens because they consider this human interaction. Children ages 2 to 5 should have no more than 1 hour, and the content should always be high quality, and it should be viewed with you. You should not be sitting them in a room viewing it on their own. School-age children, or children ages 6 to 12, and this is the one I got off the Vision website, should have less than 2 hours a day. And now conversations are starting to happen in your family about what quality content is, and you're emphasizing screen-free activities. So you're starting to talk about, okay, so these are screen activities, but these are what we do that are screen-free, and you're not saying this, but you're emphasizing the fun and how these are the ones we really want to pick and do, and those are the screen-free activities. Teens are a free-for-all. It was even hard for me to find set ones. The Vision site had them, but the reason this one is so hard is because your teens are now getting their first jobs, and a lot of their homework is done on screens. So there wasn't a clear cut, this is how much time and you shouldn't do. So outside of work or homework, they should only be doing about 2 to 4 hours. What are the side effects of too much screen time? You hear these all the time, and some people feel that these are scare tactics. Some people believe them, some people don't. So I'm just going to run through them. If you're interested in them, look them up, research them. Here they are. Physical impact of too much screen time: sleep problems, obesity, eye strain and vision problems, poor posture, and back and neck pain. Mental impact of too much screen time: poor social skills, depression and anxiety, behavioral issues, poor academic performance, loss of cognitive ability, lower self-esteem. How do I encourage healthy screen time? Oh my heck, that is actually a thing. This is where the rubber hits the road. Screens are here to stay, and you can absolutely manage time spent on devices without a major battle. Create a no screen time until chart. Oh my heck, I totally love this. And side note, other sites will tell you you shouldn't use screen time as a reward. If it's recreational, I'm of the mind where it's okay. So I like the no screen time until chart. One of the most important aspects of conflict-free screen time is boundaries. And a no screen time until chart allows your child to really examine what is important to both of you. So then you look at what is important, you set that up, and you put that in the chart. So essentially your child is buying extra screen time. Role model. Okay, I get it. This is the biggest ugh, the major eye roll, and you're saying, okay, but my screen time is different or whatever. But here's the reality. The reality is you can say whatever you want. Your child will not hear what you say. They'll watch what you do. So your actions are what they're going to listen to. Active screen time. This sounds really kind of funny. And the way I made this happen in my house, it may be cruel. I may get a whole bunch of comments based on that. But I had a kid who really, really liked to watch TV. And yeah, it was super easy to just throw him in front of a TV. He wasn't a social kid. And so I went and got a mini trampoline. And I stuck it in the living room. And I said, okay, you can watch, 2 hours a day of TV. But you have to be jumping on the trampoline the whole time. It ended up cutting down his TV time considerably because he didn't want to be jumping the whole time. But that's the only time he got to watch it. High quality content. Choose what your child is viewing on their screens. Choose high quality, educational, and age appropriate content that promotes learning and growth. You can look for programs or apps that encourage much desired skills like critical thinking, creativity, and problem solving. Get creative. Allow your child to choose programs that enhance and encourage creativity. There are a plethora of programs available that help teach your child how to code or create digital art, learn and create music, make videos. There's just so many options available. Help steer them in that way when they're on their screens. Connection. So there was a huge study done by the CDC. They did it in 2018, and there were 55,000 people in this study. They were concerned about loneliness. And remember, this is before all of the loneliness numbers got jacked way up in 2020, 21, and 22. At that time, 40% of the 16 to 24-year-olds, that was the youngest age group they did. They didn't do really young children. 40% said that they were often or very often lonely. These numbers in all age groups have risen dramatically since the pandemic. So recognize and face the loneliness and use the screen for connection and use FaceTime. FaceTime is a wonderful technological advancement simply because it allows you to have that connection, that personal connection that almost is like face-to-face. How can I manage screen time with my children? Screen-free meals. There is a lot of research out there on the benefits of family mealtime. Well, make family mealtime a priority in your home and have a place away from the kitchen table where all of the devices, including yours, go during the meal. Provide alternate activities. This is where we all need a ton of ideas. So next week's article and video are dedicated entirely to helping you find great activities that will tempt them away from their screens. Have open communication. Talk to your child, not only about screen time, because that gets kind of boring and that's what the constant battle is all about, but also, what is your child doing? What are they learning? What are they creating on their screens? Create a dialogue about the content between the two of you. Eliminate background TV. Ooh, a lot of the adults are so guilty of this. Due to that 24-hour news cycle, they just always have the news playing in the background. Well, that's a screen. There was a study and research that found that having a background TV is harmful to child's learning and development. Use parental controls. Keep an eye on your child's screen time usage. Use parental controls. If you use the ones that come with these said devices, you can limit and monitor screen time and content a lot of times for free. Keep the screens out of the bedrooms. Let the screens go to sleep at night. Have a charge zone on the kitchen counter, for example, where everyone turns in their electronics at a certain hour, 7 o'clock, for example. I chose 7 because they say that you should be off your screens for an hour before you sleep. So if most of the people's bedtime is at 8 o'clock, you turn them in at 7 and you get that guaranteed hour off the devices. Then no one accesses their devices until the following morning. Okay, the most common complaint I hear about this is, oh, but I use my phone as an alarm clock. Okay, go back and check out my video on the 7 common uses for busy moms and Alexa. Alexa's a fabulous alarm clock, and she'll also tell you the weather before you get out of bed so you already know what you should wear that day. What apps are available to monitor screen time? Start with the device yourself because that's usually one of the easiest ones to use and it's also free. I don't know how easy it is though for your child to turn it off because that might be the catch there. I'm just going to go over these quickly, but if you go into the notes, you can get the link to all of them. Family time. All of these have a free version that's a light version and a heavier version. They all say that they're available on iOS and Android. But the next one, which is Screen Time, a lot of people on the internet recommend Screen Time. But when I started checking them out, what I noticed was almost all of the great features for Screen Time were not on iOS. That may have changed, I don't know, but that's what I saw on their little chart. So be sure to check that out if you check out Screen Time. Custodio, that one seemed to have a really good price for multiple devices. So it only comes in 5 devices for like $55 a year, but you get the 5 devices. A lot of them you have to pay more for each device, of course. And MobiSip, this one is one of your cheaper options. The MobiSip Lite actually looks like it does the 3 basic things. Kids' screen time is actually one of the top parenting concerns today and one of the most searched for Google searches. With consistency and patience, you can actually strike a balance between preparing your child for the digital world and limiting screen time so your child has a happy and healthy life and develops healthy screen habits. The quote for this week, I think I've discovered the secret of life. You just hang around until you get used to it. Charlie Brown. If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, I want to send you a huge thank you. Please leave me a comment or review and share with other moms you know. Get in touch in the comments or on Kara's social media networks. See you next week for a new episode.